You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 156. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, I am so excited to share with you my conversation with Eve Rodsky. Eve is a New York Times bestselling author, attorney, organization guru specialist when it comes to systems. She is the author of Fair Play, which is also a documentary, as well as Find Your Unicorn Space, How to Reclaim Your Creative Life in a Too Busy World. We had the most epic conversation, not only about how to find that creative space, but what fair play means in your household, why it is that politicians aren't looking to women more so as being afraid of them, because in power, we can do a whole hell of a lot more, yet they think we don't have time to do it. Now, here's the thing. When you are a woman, and whether you're working in the workplace or you're working at home, we have all of the other duties that come with that. Whether we're talking about the actual physical duties of cleaning and cooking and grocery shopping, or the mental load of when do you need to take the kids to their checkup? When do you need your checkup? All of these other things. Is the school going to call you to pick up the kids when they're sick? All of these things come into play, per se, on top of what you're doing for a living, on top of, what is your spouse or your partner doing? And are these balanced? And is it, quote unquote, fair play? So Eve explains what fair play is, how this all became the big part of her life in helping gender roles to be more fair, to be equal, to be even, and they're not. Our world is not set up for this. We don't have universal childcare. All of these things are why there's such a heavier load for so many women. So we are talking about all of this. This was one of the best conversations I've ever had. I'm so excited to share this with you and to have gotten to connect with Eve, and I can't wait for you to hear it as well. Hi, Eve.
Hi, Michelle. So good to see you.
So good to see you. I'm so excited to talk to you. And like I just said, I was watching Fair Play. So I'm like, oh, you're now right in front of me, still talking to me.
Still talking. I'm still
Which
talking.
Which is awesome.
As my husband says, I'm just always talking.
So am I. Mine would say the same thing. Yeah. He's like, he actually said to me yesterday in the car, do you ever just not have an answer for something? He's like, you always have some sort of a response. I'm like, I do. Yes. You're welcome.
All right. Bye, Seth. My husband just actually walked in.
Oh, hi, Seth.
Yeah. Hi, Seth.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone who doesn't know who you are, please?
Sure. My name is Eve Rodsky. I'm the New York Times bestselling author of a book called Fair Play and Find Your Unicorn Space, which is the sequel. And I'm an expert on the gender division of labor. And Michelle, that was not what I put on my third grade. What do you want to be when you grow up board? It did not say expert on the gender division of labor. It probably said like veterinarian, but that's sort of where my life took me. And Fair Play, was a personal experience that has now become political.
And my third grade would have said attorney. So not aviation, then turned publicist, turned podcast host. So you just never know.
That's the beauty. You could always begin again.
Yes. And that's something that I loved about Find Your Unicorn Space, because I think people probably won't get it to begin with, like what the title means per se. So let's talk about that. Like, what is Finding Your Unicorn Space?
Well, I think I'll just back up for a second and say, I'm resolutely Gen X, and in my generation, we were told that you could be anything you wanted to be, right? So we were told that the generation before us had fought for us and our reproductive rights. I was born in 1976, right after, Roe. And so we were entering the workforce at unprecedented levels in male dominated fields. And so, I had a very working class background, a single parent household, a disabled brother. But I was told if you put your head down, you can accomplish all your dreams. And I sort of did that. I got all A's. Education really took me out, quote unquote. And, I get to Harvard Law School, which is where I ended up, and sort of a combination of scholarship and a shit ton of loans. And Elizabeth Warren did ask us, what do we want to be when we grow up? And I still didn't say gender division of labor expert. But back then, I remember thinking to myself, I was going to be president of the United States, Michelle. And I really thought that I could do it while also being a senator, because I could legislate during the day and issue executive orders at night. And I still was going to be a Nick City dancer, because I would never give up my dream of dancing on the iconic Madison Square Garden floor on Saturdays. And I would just fly Air Force One, back and change for state dinners on the plane, right? So I think it's important to give you the context that I really thought I'd be smashing all of these glass ceilings. And really the only thing I can tell you, like cut to 13 years later, after the Elizabeth Warren asked us, what we were going to do with our law degree, the only thing I could tell you I was really smashing what was like peas, peas for my toddler, Zach, feeding a newborn baby Ben, losing my direct reports on maternity leave, telling my boss me I was going to have to pump in a dark stairwell or a broom closet. My partner, at the same time, assuming that I am the default, or I call in Fair Play the she-fault, for literally every single household and domestic task for my family. And that overwhelming nature of where my life became. But I will say to you that at the time in my life, after my second son was born, I was feeling a unique combination that I wanted no other woman ever to feel again. And that was complete overwhelm, but also complete erasure. And I want to just tell you one other anecdote around that time when my partner was abandoning me and my work was abandoning me. All I was told was that it would get easier when my kids were in school. We have no this is like a tongue twister, social safety net in America. So we don't have universal childcare, paid leave. So I was told that your school community would be your community that will help you. And I remember getting there to Zach's toddler transition program around this time that all this stuff was happening to me. And the preschool teacher echoed that things would get easier with this community, that they would know me better than anyone's ever known me. But I looked down at my name tag as this preschool teacher was introducing us to the school community on Zach's toddler transition day. And my name tag, Michelle, said Zach's mom. And so I remember thinking, wow, these are the people who are going to know me better at this stage of my life than anyone's ever known me. Well, they don't even know my fucking name.
Yeah.
And that's what Unicorn Space became. That's where Fair Play became. Fair Play became, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to live like this, holding and shouldering all the domestic unpaid labor for my family. I'm going to move forward and help other people move forward, which has been a 10-year journey. But Unicorn Space asks a more existential question, which is this it? Is there anything beyond being a parent, a partner, and or a professional? Are we allowed to be anything else? Is availability only going to be the only part of your identity that people know about you? And that is why it's called Unicorn Space, because the space I'm asking women to occupy outside of our roles is a space that's beautiful and it's magical and it brings us back to us. But it's like a unicorn doesn't fucking exist until we reclaim it. And that's the long answer to how Unicorn Space became sort of this existential second book, follow-up to Fair Play.
I feel like everything you just said is you're basically like a mirror. And I'm sure that everyone listening feels the same exact way. From the corporate space, I was told, well, when you come to the corporate office, you better be grateful that there is, be grateful that there is a room for you to pump, and you don't talk about how we didn't give you maternity leave and you came back 2 weeks after a C-section. That's what I was told by
Wow.
another woman, nevertheless.
Yeah.
And when I looked at kindergartens, because we didn't like the one that we were supposed to go to, so I went to all of the tours, and there was one that was a charter school. And somebody said, well, you were demanded. It was required that you would work 5 hours per week per child at the
Oh my
school. And I
God.
went, then why would my kids are a year apart. Why would I send them to school if I'm going to spend half my time here? And what happens with the one child who's at home? Oh, well, we're a community. So you would watch Eve's child on the day that Eve comes, and then Eve would
Oh
watch
my
your
God.
child. And I'm like, then why
And where
am I
are the
sending them
men?
to school?
And where are the
Yeah.
men? Exactly. Yes.
What is the point? The only part of getting easier should be that I can then focus fully on the job that I've created for myself while they're at school for those few hours a day. It's insane.
Oh my God,
and nothing has changed.
Michelle, nothing. I mean, honestly, my favorite thing to do is to call schools. And I called 50 schools for Fair Play. And I asked them, why do you call women? Why do you call women when kids are sick? And I want to just explain the through line that connects Fair Play and Unicorn Space. The through line, the Kaiser Soze moment of Usual Suspects. I don't know if you remember that movie, but like the big reveal for me in my research to what became Fair Play, which was ultimately me search. I'm an organizational management consultant and lawyer. I design systems. And instead of leaving my marriage, which was the Eat, Pray, Love narrative at the time, I decided to become my own client and design a system that I did for my own clients because our home is just our most important organization. And I'm an expert in organizations. But the system, Michelle, for how to run your home was the easy part. What I couldn't understand, because the system was foul proof. I mean, it was working for Seth and me. It works for coaches, for people in different socioeconomic spheres. But why I couldn't understand why people weren't just taking this very simple concept, which is ownership mindset, right? That if you're in charge of dinner, you don't say, well, what should I be cooking, right? It's a very easy mindset. Why weren't people, even my Aunt Marion's Mahjong group, Michelle, right, has clearly defined expectations, right? You don't bring snack twice to her group and you're out. But the home, as one man said to me, was a place where he waits to decide who's taking the dog out every day, right when it's about to take a piss on the rug. So we drown in decision fatigue. And what I realized was why the system, which was so straightforward to me, wasn't readily adopted was because of the through line between Unicorn Space and Fair Play, which is exactly what you said. Why do we call women? Why are we required to do 10 hours a week of school service? It's because society has decided that we are going to build our entire society, our entire capitalist patriarchy on the backs of women. And we're going to do it on the unpaid labor of women. We don't do it by paying for childcare or having a social safety net. And so the idea of gaslighting women to feel grateful that we have children or grateful that we even have a school to go to is how we do it. And there's another piece of the gaslighting. Not only do we do what you just said about feeling grateful, we condition women from birth to believe their time is not valuable. So we tell women since they're born that their time is sand, that it's infinite. And we tell boys that their time is finite, that it's diamonds. And when you do that, and we know, all you have to do is look at any home ec curriculum in schools that say breastfeeding is free. If you don't believe me, just look at how if women enter male professions, salaries automatically come down. So we see all around us messaging that our time is sand. It's infinite. It's worthless. And then what happens is that we start believing our own time is worthless. We believe our own time is infinite. And we say 4 things to ourselves that become our mantra for how to get through these difficult times, which is I should feel grateful that my partner makes more money than me and I should do all the unpaid labor. My job is more flexible, so I should be the one picking up the kids from school or doing that school service. We say in the time it takes me to tell him, her, they what to do, I should do it myself. We say that we're better multitaskers or somehow we're wired differently to notice the socks on the floor. And the scariest one is when women said to me, yes, we're both colorectal surgeons, but my partner is better at focusing on one task at a time and I can find the time. Because what I'm here to tell women, right, is that there's no way to find time. There's actually no way for us to be Albert Einstein and fuck with the space-time continuum. There's no way to find time. There's just a different expectation over how women are supposed to use our time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to gaslight women since they're born to believe we should be using our time in service of our roles as a partner and a professional and a parent. Because if we don't condition women from birth to believe our time is less valuable, then we won't do it. And then guess what happens? Societies fall apart. So that's the scary through line of why this work is a movement and not just, unfortunately, a creativity project in a household and domestic work and chores project.
It's the absolute truth. And in reading your book, I've been writing my own book. And
Yay.
so the parallels of you putting a Post-it note on the door
Just
of like,
just
don't interrupt me. And it was like, yeah, the Post-it didn't work. And I told my husband the same thing. I'm like, yeah, you guys need to go away.
Yes,
Leave me
go
alone. I need
away.
my quiet time.
I'm unavailable. Did I tell you that? I'm
unless you
unavailable.
are dying, don't come to the door. And even so, try to save yourself first.
Yes, exactly.
But
Save
it's
yourself
the
first.
truth. We add so many things too, and it's like, well, we'll figure out the time and go around it and this and that. But like even today, knowing that we were going to meet at 11, my kids have half days, which I didn't think about when I scheduled us, and I went, oh, well, if I go over, you're just going to have to go get the kids by yourself.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, yeah. He goes, yeah, that's no problem. But we're also blessed in that we have that flexibility, the two of us, because we work across the hall from each other at home, where a lot don't. So whereas we do this movement and we're talking about it and we're on board with it, you and I, how do we help that woman that's out there that's drowning and saying, but how do I tell my husband that this is what needs to happen? Because I see it all around me. I see it at pickup. I see the one time that the one dad's coming to pick up the kids and he's asking, where do I go to get them? And I'm like, what the fuck? We've been in school for months. How do you not know where your kid's supposed to come, out of school?
As
But how
my
do we
friend
help
says,
them?
this is not the first time our child has needed a meal. That's what my friend Emily says in the documentary. She's become a friend. This is not the first time our child has needed a bath. This is not the first time our child has gone to school. It is fundamentally shocking. And so this is what I would say. What I would say is that it doesn't get better if you make more money. We now know, and the study after study proves that if women are the primary breadwinner, they just do more domestic work.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't get better for other women out there. So what I would say is we all have to be in this together. Our station in life is tied together by this one area. There are other areas where our women station in life is not tied together. But I will promise you that if you go anywhere in the globe, you can ask any woman in the entire world, and at some point in her life, she has been defined just by her roles. Whether it's mother or wife or worker. And so that's our global community, to realize that we need to fight for each other. But you can't fight for each other in a world that completely devalues your own time. Because then if our time is infinite, if it's worthless, then schools will continue to call us first. We will be required to show up at PTA meetings at 3:00. School days will still be set to 3:00 because they're assumed that women are in positions of being able to pick them up. We will do
Ours
things.
gets out at 2. Just so you know.
That's insane.
Asinine. Yeah.
Yes, asinine. Let's call it asinine, not insane, because I'm trying to also change my wording for how I say those things. That is asinine. And it is based on old tropes of who works. It's based on agrarian tropes that don't exist anymore. But again, until this becomes a movement, then women are going to feel like they're personally failing. Because what ends up happening is we do get told to pump in the broom closet. And we do need more flexibility because our partners are not helping us. And then we do leave the workforce. And then our partners do make more money than us. And then we are economically disempowered. And then we are forced to do the more unpaid labor. And then we don't have a voice. So it becomes a big cycle that we will never break until we say no more. Time is time. Time is 24 hours in a day. And regardless of how I use that time, whether I'm a stay-at-home mom or a CEO of a fucking company, my time is equally as important as your time. And that's what finally broke me and Seth for the good, broke open the dam of our communication. It wasn't, oh my God, you keep fucking texting me for your fucking blueberries, or, I don't want to be the fulfiller of your smoothie needs anymore, which is my blueberries breakdown that I talk about in Fair Play. Seth sending me a text that said, I'm surprised you didn't get blueberries. That started this whole movement for me. But it
Thanks,
really,
Seth.
thanks, Seth. But what it really became was an understanding that, the aha moment was, wow. I looked around me, Michelle, and I had stay-at-home moms around me. I had CEOs around me, but this one day that I write about in Fair Play was really my eye-opening moment that it affected us all, because it was a breast cancer march on a Saturday morning where we all felt grateful that our partners were willing to babysit our children for 3 hours. And by the time we got to noon, every one of those women were getting texts and phone calls from our partners. Not everyone was married to a man, but most of us are, of, texts like, where did you put Hudson's soccer bag? And where's the gift for the birthday party? And my favorite was my friend Kate's husband that sent us a text that said, or sent her a text that said, do the kids need to eat lunch? And it was the 30 phone calls and 46 texts that I counted up for 10 women over 30 minutes, which is what I did before they all left me. They made me realize that this is on us to solve. We have to solve this. And the only way to do this is to stop getting those texts.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just the execution. Oh, my partner helps by going to pick up the kids when they're sick once. It is, we have to get the cognitive labor, the behind the things, the thinking off of our plate so that we could have uninterrupted attention for things that we love. And that's ultimately what Fair Play is about. Fair Play was about how to get that time back. But Unicorn Space asks a more even important question, which is, what do you do with that time once you get it back? Do you know what to do with that time once you get it back? Or have you lost yourself in the overwhelm and erasure so that what you would do at that time is binge watch Netflix or drink mommy juice, the wine culture that has sort of been normalized, or take edibles to numb yourself through your life? Or are we going to understand that we have to reclaim happiness and meaning and really find those things that make us us? Because at the end of the day, the antidote to burnout is not binge watching Netflix. It's not a walk around the block or even a drink with a friend. The antidote to burnout, Michelle, is being consistently interested in our own lives. Yeah. And that's really what Unicorn Space is. It's a call to action and a game plan for how to be consistently interested in your own life.
And I think I would go so far as saying that not just finding that space and what you love to do when you don't have to do all the other things, but making sure that it applies to whatever it is you do for a living. Because for 20 years, I was in a career. It wasn't that I didn't love it. I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed the money that I brought home, but I had those Sunday blues of like, great, I got to wake up on Monday morning. And now I don't. I absolutely fucking love what I do. I have no problem. If I had to do it in morning, noon, and night, that's not a problem. I love what I'm doing. And I think for so many, that's one point where people don't enjoy what they're doing. And then you have this extra space and it's like, I don't know what to do. Can I do something else? I don't know. So I do go binge watch this, or I go drink this. There's that balance that we're just failing all over the place when it comes to that, because we're not putting our wants and our needs and our passions first.
And I would add our values. So what ends up happening is I thought that Unicorn Space would be more common among people who identified in the 1% as opposed to the working poor. And I found the exact opposite. I found that people who were in communities of churches and smaller communities, rural, agrarian in the United States, people who identified more as middle class or working poor actually were much more likely to be in a bowling league or have church activities or things that define them. And then as you got richer up the scale, not only do you lose the things you talked about through the exhaustion and the burnout and the Sunday nights, but you sort of lose your value system of like what you really wanted. And you say, wait a second, did I really want that third kid, or I just did it because everybody else did it? Did I really want that nicer house, or do I just have too much stuff now? And then one day you wake up and you say, is that it? Because we're chasing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Unicorn Space is. It's about a return to your values. It's sort of values-based curiosity is a way forward. If you're saying, I wouldn't even know where to start. And that's the beauty. So I'll just give an example for what you are doing. So again, I don't know if you make $1 or $1 billion. I don't care. But I will say that this podcast and listening to you, because I like to prep and always listen first to who are my host. What I will say about you is that this is a unicorn space, because a unicorn space is defined by three things. You will know you're in a unicorn space, not a soul cycle class, a unicorn space, if you have three things. If you have curiosity, I wonder what it would be like if I talked to this person. I wonder if they would have interesting things to say. That's what you do. Then you have connection. You actually reach out and say, oh, I really want to, take the time to meet this person. And then you do the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of women, which is completion. The way you live out fulfilled dreams and not unfulfilled dreams is you have to complete something. So even if you hated this interview, right, you're editing it and you're uploading it and you're promoting it, right? You completed something, even if it isn't perfect. And so I think that cycle of curiosity, connection, and completion would make this podcast a unicorn space. The only thing I will say to you, for the people who identified a unicorn space as possibly something that they also do as their career, is there are two other things that you lose when you do that. So it's a great thing, but you lose two other things. And that's what I call the happiness trio for people who are working in their unicorn space. And that is friendships and self-care. And so it's really important when your passion is your job, your unicorn space is also something that you get paid for, that you remember that basic self-care, gym time, those walks around the blocks I was saying are not the antidote, but are important for you who already has unicorn space. And those friendship times are still really important.
Absolutely. And this is the unicorn space because I have the real job, not the real job, but the paying job of, podcast pitching and clients and that kind of thing. But if you listen to this week's episode, and it kind of sounds like you did, I lost that, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm really passionate about, advocating for this. And I didn't do the self-care. I took off the nail polish, but I went back to putting, nail polish on because that's my self-care of I feel good like that, of getting back on the treadmill. I've put the rowing machine down on my Christmas list. Like these are things that I want that also excite me, but I do have to get back to me. And even with unicorn space and enjoying a job that I love.
That's what I said. Exactly. Because
Yeah.
it has to be that trio. And I talk about that. Most people confuse all three things, but they are different things. Unicorn space is different than self-care, and it's true self-care, not commodified wellness. I'm not selling you here like a vaginal egg or whatever the hell those things are. So true self-care, friendships, and unicorn space. That is the happiness trio. That is
So I'm
meaning.
getting back to it.
Yes.
I'm getting back to
You're
it. I
doing the
lost
triangle.
my way and then I'm like, oh, wait, no, fuck the rest.
Good. So happy for you.
Yeah, it helped that yesterday was election day. So
yes.
That's one thing you can just check off of, okay, no more campaigning.
It's funny because it's so interesting you said that, because sometimes, you don't realize, right, how external factors, I think, especially since you and I have an eye towards activism in different ways, right? Since I feel like I do that for a living, I live an activist life. You still forget how much it can affect you, right? And so I feel like I've been through a million election cycles. I've been a poll watcher for the NAACP. I have a political action committee. I'm very highly engaged in issues around care, a foundation that focuses on getting the social safety net back. We were pushing for Build Back Better. But still, the past week, I was testing. I sort of had a faint line for COVID, and then my PCR test came back negative. But I was literally throwing up and feeling like, what is happening? I wonder if this is long COVID symptoms. And this morning I woke up and like my nausea was gone. And I realized that I couldn't believe that I did not understand the mental toll election day was taking on me, and how the amount of relief I felt this morning by seeing that, at the end of the day, I think democracy will prevail at least for another 2 years. So anyway.
It's the truth. So I've been campaigning for our mayor, one of our candidates here. well, he's not mayor yet. We still don't have the results. So my stomach's still in knots. And last night I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in knots because I've never been this active in a single campaign for someone. And his entire staff goes, Michelle, we've been puking all day. Yeah. We're all taking turns on who's going next. And I'm like, well, if I'm in knots, you have to be in knots. And we're continuing to be in knots. But part of me taking that on was I said, well, election day is November 8th. So then after that, check that box, move on to the next thing. You know,
it's hard. It's really
hard. There was an end in sight. But yeah, it's definitely... so I want to talk to you more about your pack and stuff.
Yes, you can burn out. Yes, it's really cool and interesting. And it's a pack that's really meant to, get more women in office. And given, I was just able to go to DC for the Fair Play documentary, which was really exciting. And I started to ask senators and Congress people, why aren't you afraid of women? It makes no sense that you're afraid of the elderly because you discriminate against the elderly. They're not productive members of quote unquote society if you believe in a capitalist patriarchy. Like what and really the answer was, and I don't mean that, of course, I'm not ageist. I'm just saying that would be the sort of the trope that wouldn't you be more afraid of people in the prime earning career of their lives? But what I heard from so many senators is exactly what we started this podcast with. Well, you have no time. I can count on that senior to show up for their issues around Medicare, but I know that you're busy and moms have no time.
They don't know all the moms then. Like I got involved with Moms Demand Action.
And we're doing it. We're
like
doing
when
it.
we all get together, you guys better run.
That's it. You better run
and hide.
and vote and continue to vote. And my call to action to all of you today is that please learn the name of your state senator. It's such an important piece of the puzzle, and get to know them, introduce yourself. Their offices are pretty empty because people don't know who they are. Know who your state senator is, who your state assemblymen are, or women are, or assembly people are, whatever gender. Please get to know them because all the democracy is going to be playing out in the states over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, even down to your council members.
Members.
Email them.
Board of supervisors, yes.
Yeah, Board of Education. Like, email these people. They work for us. Yes. And I think that oftentimes we forget that, and people just don't take the time. I think that you can make such big strides with such little things, such as just sending that email. And you'll get the response, and then you're on their list, and they'll see your name. They'll get to know who you are. So, I'm glad you mentioned that.
So civic engagement, as you can tell, is my unicorn space. But again, because there's a lot of curiosity, connection, and completion through election cycles, it's a great unicorn space. But again, I need self-care and friendships to round out this, a highly meaningful unicorn space.
I love it. Well, I guess we should wrap up.
Yes,
no,
yes.
But it's too much
we'll
fun.
Keep talking. Yes. I mean, I'm just glad I got to meet you. And like I said, continue this unicorn space. It's important. And for all of you out there who say, yes, you're ready to be unavailable. You deserve that permission to be unavailable from your roles. And you're ready to vanquish guilt and shame and ask for what you need. Just remember, you can just start small. Start with a curiosity if you feel like you haven't been curious in a while. Start with connection if you're feeling lonely. And start with completion if you feel like you have a lot of projects out there in your garage and you just need to complete something. Pick where you feel like you're lacking and start there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Eve.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, my friends, I don't know if after that you're ready to go run for office or to go knock on your senator's doors and let them know who you are and what you want, but I hope it's lighting a fire under you. And it's not even that you need to go do those two things, but you need to explore what it is that you want to do. Finding that space for yourself to create that curiosity, the connection, and then to complete it. I loved those three things, the trifecta. And I want for each of you to have that. decide what you want to do because you deserve this. We have this one life to live. And I say this over and over again, especially since we know it's not that long. It is a finite amount of time, and we need to make sure that we spend it the way that we want. So this is what I want to challenge to you, is to go find that unicorn space. What are you curious about? What do you want to do? What interests you? Maybe it is tap dancing. Maybe it's taking music lessons. Maybe it's writing a book. But whatever it is, you need to go find it. And you owe it to yourself to do it. Go figure that one out for yourself. Say that you need help. If you need help from your partner, from a friend, let them know. Turn off the text messages so that you don't have those 30 waiting for you. Do whatever it takes for you to put yourself first, because you deserve it. It's only fair, and you need to find your unicorn space.